So this is Janice Drew, and we're at the Nonprofit Executive Directors Meetup in New York, and we are hosting this at TCI College. We're having people come in, but as people come in, I'd like to have each person be able to have the opportunity to introduce themselves, what organization that they belong to, what their top need is right now, and then how they feel they can contribute to this group. Before we got started recording this, I was explaining a little bit about the background behind this group. And the idea is that there are a lot of nonprofit resources out there, but as a new nonprofit, it's often difficult to find the right resource that you need to get started. When you're in mid-stage, you're looking for search and partnerships that may not be that easy to find either. And then when you may be able to help the other nonprofits be able to not make the same mistakes that you made when you were earlier on in your nonprofit director career. And so this Meetup is both on LinkedIn, which allows for online discussion forum, and then also on Meetup. And the idea is that it's around the country, and eventually could become global, and anybody can use this one Meetup resource to organize multiple meetings. So anybody who wants to be an assistant organizer or an organizer of meetings, I would give free access because there's an unlimited number of organizers on Meetup for this account, as well as an unlimited number of members. And the idea is then there could be pockets of meetups for, artists, for educators, as well as for, different geographies, different stages. And hopefully this thing will grow into something that's helpful for any nonprofit that wants to participate and leaders that are aspiring to be leaders and leaders who have experience. So I will get started on just giving you my one line. Again, Janice Drew. I'm the Director of Marketing at TCI College, which is where we're hosting this in person. And we have a nonprofit alumni association. And our biggest challenge right now, I think, is our lack of resources, and we haven't completely finished the 501c3 paperwork, so knowing how to navigate through that. And then I think what I have to offer to the group is, my marketing expertise and being able to potentially partner as a college to help other local nonprofits. So let's go around the room first, and then we'll go through the phone. So I'll go this way. Nomi is our guest speaker. We'll put her on the phone now.
How much should I say?
So what I just said was less than a minute.
Okay.
And a lot of times people will talk on and on. And hopefully we can save that for the end or during the discussion period so that we can go through and just introduce ourselves, and then you can hear what organization, and what type of organizations are on the phone. And then once we follow up, we can maybe do some matchmaking as well for what your needs are and what you have to offer.
Smart. My name is Nomi Kanst, Nomi T. Kanst. I am the Executive Director and founder of the Accountability Project, which is a journalistic nonprofit organization. We do investigative reporting here in New York, focusing on political investigative reporting. It's technically it's the third nonprofit I founded. I would say the first one was sort of a joke, so lots of lessons. And what am I looking for? I like meeting new people. I just learned that Tirana, works is part of the MIT Media Labs, and our organization's been doing some sort of partnership with them. So, hey, you never know.
And then what would you have to offer?
What do I have to offer? That's a good question. Lessons from my mistakes. I'm here to talk about partnerships. So I've sort of navigated the partnership world in unique, unconventional ways, and I don't think there's one way or the other, but I definitely have some tips. So,
okay.
There you go.
So, Tirana.
Hi, I'm Tirana. I'm a strategic user experience designer with MIT Media Lab. I do research and design. There's a Laboratory of Social Machines. It's a new group. It started last year. And and I'm trying to move away from it now and start my own nonprofit. And my focus is on Indian girls, and I'm trying to bridge the role model gap for them. Oh, well, I'm a researcher and designer. I can offer research and tips how to research, how to do ethnographic research, how to find exact problem and, take your research to design.
Great. So,
It doesn't.
yeah, so it doesn't stretch, the phone doesn't stretch, so if you can, step closer to the phone, if you can.
I'm sorry.
My name is Vera Rungtrigul. I am the founder of a recently founded nonprofit called Truly Well that's trying to promote a more comprehensive vision of wellness that's primarily non-clinical and includes social emotional well-being. And some of the needs right now as a new startup is trying to find those resources on how to legally establish yourself, as well as any groups that are offering any sort of resources on creating partnerships like you'd mentioned, and just navigating those first steps. And what I can offer is any sort of expertise in public health, which is my background, as well as translation and interpretation for Spanish and Thai.
My name is Stanley Kong, and I currently work for TD Securities in their retail tech compliance group. I actually started doing more volunteer work with New York Cares recently, and just submitted my application to team leader. I guess I'm trying to look more into like nonprofit sectors and whatnot, and I guess what I have to offer to the group is my accounting skill.
Hi, my name is Veena Shetty, and I started a nonprofit 12 years ago. It's called the India Center, and it focuses on traditional Indian dance and music. Before that, I used to work with the Special Olympics, and I was handling public relations.
What's your top need now?
Well, we could use help with reaching out to the community. So in terms of outreach, so that would be very useful because we are so busy working on our own projects and focusing on the festivals, dance festivals, music festivals, that it's hard for us to take. It's an all volunteer organization, so we do not have a paid staff. So it would be great if people could help us do outreach, contacting colleges, etc., and spreading the word about our events and things like that to connect. That would be very useful for us.
And then what can you offer the group yourself?
Experience with nonprofit, how to register it, how to get through and navigate the whole thing.
I'm Daiji. I'm Jewish and Lauren and show support to Dennis. So my day job is marketing and PR for financial services. I'm also involved in some volunteer activities for my college and my church. The offer is marketing and PR help, and hopefully I can connect some of you to some of my friends who are more involved in nonprofits.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Steve Bowden. Originally, I had an environmental studies background, and I founded a nonprofit in New Jersey doing environmental education on a farm. I then went to business school where I concentrated my MBA in social entrepreneurship. So we take a look at a lot of different nonprofit or social for-profit models. And now I run a consulting company that actually specifically caters to small businesses and nonprofits and social enterprises. We do everything from strategy, financing, all that sort of stuff. So here to hopefully be a resource and a sounding board, and I sit on a couple boards, so looking to get involved. Time is somewhat limited, but whatever presents itself, I'm willing to look at.
The top challenge that you've heard your nonprofits that you consult with?
All nonprofits really struggle with revenue, and they're very cost focused. They should be revenue focused, and some of the things that we do is teach people to manage by numbers.
Okay, great. So now we're going to run through the phone, and for those who called in a little late, what we're doing is going through and saying your name, what organization you represent, and what your top challenge is, and how you can help the overall group of nonprofit leaders. Start with the top of the caller list and go down. So the first person I have on the list is Steve. Are you there, Steve?
Yes, I'm here. Hello, everyone. My name is Steve Kuntz. I work with the New York Distance Learning Association, We just recently merged with the New England Distance Learning Association, and we're also affiliated with the United States Distance Learning Association. Our greatest challenges are the resources in terms of manpower, to keep our websites running, to keep our membership connected. We raise money through membership drives, and we also offer technologies to any members of our groups. And as the director of our organization says, everything in this day and age is distance learning. So we can probably offer many things to many of you, and feel free to reach out to me. Janice has my information.
Okay. So the next number I have on this list is 609-610 number.
Yes, that must be me, Mark.
Yes, Mark.
Hi, I'm Mark Willey, and I'm principal of MRW Consulting in Hamilton, New Jersey, and consultant nonprofits. And I've been doing this for something like 20 years. And I work in New York City and all of New Jersey, Philadelphia area, and even sometimes in upstate New York. But essentially, I work in 4 areas: fundraising, all aspects of it, from grant writing to major gifts and capital campaigns, strategic planning, usually the more extensive kind of strategic planning, not just the retreats, and board development training is a big one, big focus area, public relations, and also executive search, helping nonprofits find development officers and executive directors and do it very cost effectively.
Great.
So that's,
thanks, Mark. The next person I have, I think, is Peter Gordon, or 347234.
Hello. Maybe you have Julie Livingston. Do you have Julie?
Oh, is that Julie?
Yeah.
If you could go ahead and introduce yourself, Julie.
Sure. Hi, everyone. Great to be here. I'm Julie Livingston of Livingston PR. I have a public relations consultancy focused on serving nonprofits and trade associations. I'm based in New York City, and so I can offer the group my public relations expertise in working with nonprofits over more than 20 years, and my expertise as a marketer. I'm looking for nonprofits that might need a consultant like me to help them with their PR efforts in raising visibility, credibility, and reaching target stakeholders.
Great. Thanks, Julie. Next person, I have the 718-708 number.
Yes, hi, good evening. My name is Jennifer Seeger. I am currently the director of, can everybody hear me, by the way?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay. I'm currently the director of the Veterans Program at Family Services of Westchester, which is a rather large nonprofit organization in Westchester County, so I oversee 3 components of that, including an AmeriCorps program. In terms of how I can contribute, I mean, like the young woman who I think was the ED of the Accountability Project, I didn't catch her name, I'm also very good with, engaging and facilitating partnerships with community organizations. In terms of challenges, I have been a director now both in early intervention and of this for maybe 7 years, and I'm getting stuck in making the leap from director to executive director. Budgets in particular are my Achilles heel, never have been taught how to do them. So that's definitely one area that I would love to have some guidance with.
Great. And let's see, so I think there's also a 908-906, or did that person already introduce themselves?
Yes, hi. My name is Adi Telfusi. I work currently as a clinical research associate, and I am new to the nonprofit enterprise. I actually just formed the TESS Foundation. The TESS Foundation actually focuses on providing access to quality health care and education in Nigeria. So I'm basically here to learn more. What do I have to offer? Nothing yet, because I'm actually new to the nonprofit business.
Great.
But I'm hoping as I go along, I'll be able to give back.
I'm sure there's plenty that you can contribute. So I think there's also a 202-760 in DC.
Hi, it's Aaron Hamlin with the Center for Election Science.
Yes.
Yep. So I'm the Executive Director at the Center for Election Science. We focus on improving electoral systems and public and private organizations. I'm also an attorney, so I'm well aware of some of the technical issues that are involved with nonprofits starting up. So that's what I would be able to offer, as well as for the traditional organizational components that come along with running a nonprofit. And Janice is also on our board of directors, so very excited with what she's doing.
Great, thank you, Aaron. I think I went through the whole list on the phone. Did I miss anyone? And I'll count to 3. 1, 2, 3. Okay. So I think we're going to jump right into Nomi's discussion about partnerships and what her experience has been. And this can be a collaborative talk, and we'll let her jump right in.
Hi.
And I should probably talk a little bit about your bio. I mean, but yes. So on this page, I actually put Nomi's website as a meeting resource, as well as her nonprofit. So there's links at the bottom, and her bio is right on her page, so you can read it. Great, lots of she said.
I keep seeing myself on screen.
She's founded nonprofits and also tied into the media, politics. So I think it'll be great to hear her experiences, and very young too.
Well, thank you. I don't know about that young, but
level of experience that she brings to the table. So it would be great to hear a little bit about being a millennial and in this space as well. So I'll let you go ahead and jump in.
Sure. So there's so many people in here that are experienced with nonprofits or experts in their own fields that I feel I question what I actually have to offer. So if you know something already, please let me know. I'm going to try to keep this very 30,000-foot perspective and dive in when needed. My background's in politics, and from the organizing level. My first job, believe it or not, I was 12 years old working in a campaign illegally, and moved all the way up to 16 working for a congresswoman and then a senator. And campaigns essentially are organizing people and raising money and doing PR. It's essentially being an executive director if you're able to work in all those different fields. And then, as an executive director, you're sort of doing all the different aspects of a campaign at once, also as a candidate. So when I left politics in 2006, it was right before the presidential election. I was doing communications work, so somehow I ended up being a communications director in Arizona for a campaign in Arizona. And a friend of mine was in Los Angeles and contacted me and said, Nomi, I know you've never worked in Hollywood before, but we're gearing up for a presidential election. If you can think back to 2006, people were very unhappy with the Iraq War and what was going on in politics, and they wanted to channel that energy into a more constructive way to, function politically. And so my friend was a screenwriter, and he was working for a very well-known celebrity, and the celebrity wanted me to go in to a group of his friends, who are all celebrities, and train them in how to speak effectively about politics. And I was like, I'm sorry, what? I've never met a celebrity in my life. You want me to go in and talk to 5 A-listers or 12 or whatever it was. Turns out I was in front of a group of 45 people at the age of 24, teaching them how to, or 22, something like that, teaching them how to speak effectively about certain political issues that they cared about. It was a closed-door meeting, but I left and I was like, oh my God, every single person in this room has so much power, but it's not organized, and it's in a lot of ways people are taking advantage of it and offering consulting services. So I knew that there was some need for an organization to work with members of the entertainment industry on how to speak effectively about politics from a nonpartisan perspective, from a, there was no trying to tap into the Hollywood to get their money. It really needed to be separate from, the for-profit world. And knowing nothing about starting nonprofits, I moved to Los Angeles, randomly met somebody who I was stupid enough to just ask people for money without knowing how to do it, and we got some seed money. And the seed money was essentially like $120,000. Literally showed up in LA, gave one pitch meeting to a person I was connected to, and started this organization, got a really crappy office, and just hired people. That's how you do it in a campaign, not how you do it in a nonprofit. So quickly, within 6 months, we ran out of money. We went through our staff 3 times, and I realized I was a really bad executive director. So that was my crash course in starting an organization. After that, it was very difficult to raise money, mainly because it was a presidential year, and the political dollars were being sucked up by campaigns. There's just, there were a lot of startups, and so the space became very cluttered, and I didn't know how to keep the momentum of what we had started and raise money. And then the economy crashed, and then it just kept getting harder. We couldn't get foundation money, and et cetera, et cetera. So I had to have this come to Jesus moment, and I think a lot of companies and a lot of startups have seen this since the economy crashed, but this happened a little bit earlier for us in that I realized we had to keep up with what we were creating these training programs and going to Washington, D.C. and taking celebrities, and we had to keep up with that, but we didn't know how to pay for it. And so that's when I realized partnering was the only way to do that. And partnering, and this is a very unique type of organization, but I didn't know what a partnership was. I just knew people, and I would try to pitch them something because everybody wanted a piece of Hollywood, and then I would get something in return. It was really just quid pro quo. It was just politics. And so essentially what we did was we restructured the organization so that it wasn't just about having these training sessions with, celebrities. It was about creating salons where we could screen films about certain political issues, charge people for entrance, very little, and then create a membership structure which was 4 different types of memberships. There were obviously the actors and actresses that people know that are really flaky and don't show up to anything. There were the screenwriters, and then there were the industry people, so the PR people, the attorneys, producers, the people who had the money. And then the 4th tier were the experts. Because what I saw was that at every salon that we'd have lots of individuals come together like a meetup and say, I'm looking for this service, you have that service, oh, that's interesting. So it would become this brainstorming or collaboration salon rather than a salon where we taught them how to speak effectively about political issues. And so that's really where the partnerships grew, because we had studios say, you've got this consortium of really powerful people that are interested in certain topics, and we're willing to offer our resources in exchange for that. And what that meant was we could host screenings at the studios. It meant that we didn't have to pay $50,000 to have an event. It meant that because we were able to attract PR, we could get different pro bono services. I mean, there's lots of different, I could get into the details about that, but that was the origin of partnerships in my world. Now, I left Alliance Hollywood in 2011 to run for office. Not smart. And then immediately afterwards, I faced some issues of corruption, which every person in politics has seen, but really affects you differently when you're dealing with it personally. And I knew that getting out of my campaign that there were some voids in the industry, the political industry, that needed to be filled. And the biggest was I saw a lot of politicians that were going unchecked. And as I started to do my research, I realized, it's funny that in the past 8 years, investigative political reporting has basically died. Investigative reporting in general has died, but investigative political reporting has died as the media industry has changed. And then State House, so Capitol reporting, is non-existent. There used to be a day when not all the reporters were in Washington. They were all out in their capitals, and there were very few reporters in Washington. It's the opposite now. And what that means is you have politicians who are running unchecked. So they're getting away with more as the laws loosen up, and the media just doesn't have the resources or the time to do that. So I decided to get into journalism, and that's really where the Accountability Project started. The Accountability Project, we started about a year ago, I'd say. Started a little bit more as a consulting group, and then it turned into a journalistic organization. It is all partnerships. We fund our entire organization off of partnerships. What took me like a year and a half to figure out at Alliance Hollywood took us no time to figure out. And the reason why it's partnerships is because it's very simple. We looked for what do we have to offer, at what price can we offer it at, and who needs who needs that service, and what are they willing to pay? I mean, it is a partnership in terms of like payment, but it's also more bang for the buck on both sides. So we hire investigative reporters that don't have work because it's a dead industry, and they do investigative pieces, and we outsource that product to major media companies. Some of them don't put our title on it, some of them do. As we grow, the model's probably going to shift a little bit, but it was not as hard to develop those partnerships as I thought it was going to be. I thought it was going to be like years before we could do a partnership with Fox, or years before we could do a partnership with like a major newspaper. As I hired reporters, I saw that those reporters had experiences at those other companies and they've been laid off. And as we applied for grants at the foundations, the board members of the foundations were also board members or worked as executives at these different media companies. So, our model is totally funded by media partnerships. We have other types of partnerships too, but like that's the basic overview. I mean, I could get into the nitty gritty, but like, is there a specific area you think that I should talk about, or like how I gained?
Is there an example of one partnership that you thought was really a strong partnership, and then one that you felt was a failed partnership? And
do you want to define partnership quickly, like
yeah.
how you're using it, and I mean, because obviously like it means a lot of different things to different people. So if you could do that a little bit, that would help.
And I think even for us, they mean different things. We have partnerships with organizations. Okay, so here's an example. We produce an article, and it's on, say there's a senator that like had a sex scandal, because this is a really great example of something that happened. There was a senator that got a sex scandal. We did the investigative report. We knew that in order for that report to get coverage, we needed to partner with somebody because our audience wasn't big enough in the beginning. We didn't have the audience. We didn't have the funds to invest in like the technology that would make that audience bigger. We definitely weren't going to hire a publicist. None of that. So we needed to like work with another organization who could benefit from that type of report. So we found a feminist organization, like a women's group, that would use the story, the breaking news, with their newsletter or their, like whether it was a commercial because it was a political election, an election year, or through their millions of people on their newsletter. They pushed that story out, which got the story more attention. And that helped us, we helped them. So they need those stories to like rev up their base, also helps them fundraise, because every time you hear a breaking story about like some sexist pig, feminist organizations raise a lot of money. So that was like a great example of these strategic partnerships that benefited both. It also helped us raise money too. A bad example, is that a good?
And does that define partnership for you, or because I think, and what you just described sounded similar to what a for-profit would call a joint venture, where you have somebody who's also a business owner blast out your information, and you blast out theirs, and it doubles the size of the reach of the information that you send out.
Right.
So that's one example of a partnership. There's also sponsorships, something where a company or another organization endorses you or gives you money, or other sort of, and I don't know if there's other types of partnerships that if you want to go through.
Right. I mean, I think that the media partnerships that we have are pseudo sponsorships. Some of them, it's a write-off for them. This is legal structure that I really don't understand, but we've had to like work with each company individually to figure out what those partnerships are. We have some partnerships with media companies where we're not paying anything. They're just giving us a platform, a front page article, and that helps out a lot. And then we give them the content, which, that they don't have to hire the reporters to fill that content. So that's more of like it's not a sponsorship per se. I mean, sponsorships are sponsorships. We know what sponsorships are. You give money or you give services, and that's a sponsorship for the organization. We still don't really call them partnerships at the Accountability Project just because it gets really confusing.
And then I wonder if there's partnerships where if you had a similar political organization that, where you pool together your volunteers, and that may be a kind of like sister organization type of a partnership that you could create.
Right.
And I don't know, you said most of your partnerships are media partnerships.
Yeah, most of them are media partnerships. Some of them are political organizations or activist organizations. If we know that we're going to release a story about something that's controversial, and we know that there are organizations that need that type of content to get out there. I mean, we also have to be very careful because we're journalistic, so we don't want to appear partisan. But, if like we did some report on the NYPD, beating somebody, unfortunately, like the stories that we've been reading, we would probably go to some community organization that's organizing and can raise the profile of that and also, utilize the content. And it's also valuable for both organizations for fundraising too. So like I think the way that we look at partnerships and is anything that can be mutually, both groups can benefit from it mutually, but also there's like there's a PR angle, so it raises our profile and their profile, and it also is an expense. It like saves us money or their money or whatever it is. So we try to make sure that we cover lots of grounds when we have partnerships. We're working on a partnership right now. I can't say what it is officially, but it's an awesome partnership. We had a media company that's starting a news network right now. Knock on wood, because I want to make sure that this goes through. But they're looking for content. They have a lot of money, and they're just looking to sell airtime. Airtime meaning, they're starting a news network, so they need to like fill it up. So one of the things that they proposed to us is to do a segment or a show on political accountability. Now that is like far different from the reporting that we do today, which is all written out reporting. We're not doing on-air reporting. It's a very different type of reporting style. But, we're willing to adjust because, oh my God, that would be like millions of people. Of course you're going to say yes to that. So sometimes these partnerships you have to pivot. And I think it's very intuitive. I think you have to be really creative, intuitive, and not think that there's one way or the other.
So it sounds like some of the things that you're saying is there's transaction-based agreements that you have. There's sort of synergistic relationships that are there. So that sort of cover what you're saying with partnerships, like it's, because that, like legally a partnership is like very different than, right? What I'm saying? So like I'm just trying to get my head around.
So it's more of a collaboration rather than a partnership, because partnership means, you're sharing equally.
Right.
It sounds like you collaborate with a whole bunch of different organizations.
Are there legal agreements?
There are legal agreements.
As and when it suits them. That's what I'm presuming.
There are definitely legal agreements, though. We have each of our partners.
But it's
we have
a collaboration, because a partnership,
Yeah.
Because a partnership is, when you're kind of
But
sharing.
some of them are also joint ventures too. I mean, I think each of them are specific. Like we have a story that we're working on right now where we're working with a media company and their editor is working with our reporters directly, so we are actually collaborating on the story, and that is a legal partnership. So I think it's tough when you're in the nonprofit world because I think there's lots of different. There's like the language is similar, but it has different definitions, and obviously when you're in startup phase, you want to be very lean and adaptable. Obviously, if we're like the March of Dimes, a partnership's going to be very different. If the March of Dimes and the Red Cross partner up, that would be like a huge thing. I don't know what that would be, but that would be, a totally different type of partnership. But yeah.
So here in US, it's like right wing and left wing, right? There's a huge following. So how do you when you are partnering with someone? How do you say that okay, you belong to a category of right wing news providers, but we are like into accountability, and we don't really care that the person belongs to right wing or the left wing. We are just reporting what we see, right? And sometimes these partners can create a roadblock for you, saying that, oh, don't report about this guy because he belongs to. How do you handle that?
It's usually story by story. Just like, this is a question I get all the time. The question was, how do we decide, you know, if we have a partnership with a news organization that has one slant, how do we decide which content can be covered or not, or how do they decide? It's the same sort of question we have just in the newsroom, like when a reporter says, you know, we have dirt on this person, and we know it might be a little bit slanted. Like, it really comes down to the editor, and it really is a human question. Like, I just got back from Fox. I go on Fox News every day. I'm a Democrat. Like, there's no question about it. I ran for Democratic office. I work for a journalistic organization. We're nonpartisan, but, like, I'm not going to lie, I ran for office as a Democrat. We have these conversations every day. You know, we're not going to go in there, and we've been very strict about this with our agreements. If they're trying to slant anything, then we will pull out of the partnership. It's tough because people get sued and things happen, but luckily we haven't had that happen.
Well, for example, you said partnership with Fox. If
Yeah.
the politician is a Republican, the chances are Fox would not be interested in the story, and some Democratic organization would be interested.
Right.
So constantly have to, I guess, switch sides in terms of partnerships. So sometimes it's Republicans and
Right. We have a lot of partners, and this model exists already. It's not like we're inventing this. It's ProPublica. There are a few different nonprofit journalistic organizations that do this type of work, this like outsourcing of media. We're just doing it in a very specific niche type of investigative reporting, which is political. So, and you know, strangely enough, we do get, you know, right-wing or left-wing papers or organizations that will want something from their side. You'll be really surprised. So.
How are you primarily funded?
We are funded, so we have donors, high worth donors that have given us our seed money, foundations, and then the partnerships. Partnerships that's really where most of our money is coming from right now.
So how many full-time staff members do you have?
We have 12.
And you're based in Manhattan?
Yes, we're in Manhattan. 12, and I'm like,
Do you think that's what you do primarily right now, or do you have other organizations that you're running?
Yeah, this is what I primarily do.
So when you're saying that you're doing this accountability project, like what percentage of your time you spend in negotiating partnership versus, I guess, actual other activities, I guess? Or is there a way that you can separate your 100% of your time, like where is the percentage of time that you go to certain things that you do to maintain?
You're on Fox News every day. I'm sure that takes a bit of time too.
Russ me, it's driving me crazy. I have an editor-in-chief now, and that makes things much easier in terms of partnerships. He pitches the stories around, so he has relationships with a lot of these news companies. Obviously, if it's a bigger partnership deal, like if we're going to News Network, I'm more involved in that process. But usually when it comes down to signing the contract, I'm there with him. But he has a better understanding of each of the stories, so he goes and he calls up, you know, like Salon or whatever magazine it is that we want to pitch the story to, and then he negotiates that. So he's dealing with more of like the everyday partnerships. The bigger deals I'm more involved in, and sometimes I get really creative with them. And you know, the News Network one, we've been trying to pitch some sort of news deal for a while. So that one I'm more involved in. But in terms of, I think most of my time is spent fundraising. Donors still, I mean, it's still a part of our budget, even though we get most of it from partnerships. And then I do the TV stuff in the afternoons, but most of my mornings are done doing some sort of donor calls and meetings. And
so your partners give you more money, the most, you said. So is that because they feel that you will help them get their cause out? Like, why are they partnering?
Why are they partnering?
And why are they giving you the resources?
Well, the media companies don't have the content. They love investigative journalism. Some media companies have investigative reporters, but I can't, you know, most newspapers nowadays have cut their investigative reporters. So the content is very good. It's cheaper for them to buy content per story than it is to have full-time investigative reporters on staff. So that's their advantage. And because we have a team of investigative reporters constantly working, and hopefully that'll grow and grow as we grow, we'll just be able to produce more and more content.
And that's Is it just a freelance fee-for-service, like by story basis, or when you say partnerships, like you have an agreement that they will buy so many stories from you at a certain price?
Yeah, each one's different. It depends on the company, and we really figured that out by looking at other media companies that have done stuff like this. You know, if you're with a news network, you're gonna have a bigger contract with them. But we have some like New York stuff. Most of the stuff we're doing right now is New York based, and we have, because of that, there are fewer media companies that we can work with, and so those media companies have, like, for a year they will get, you know, if I'm making this up because this is not how we're writing it out, but essentially it would be like, okay, if we're going to profile 12 congressmen, you, city and state, are going to get dibs on them first. And then sometimes they say no. So then we go to the next company that we're partnering with. But most of them are done on an individual basis. And, you know, because our editor is really great, you know, most of the work that we're producing is pretty serious stuff. So we know what's going to stick and what's not.
Do you pay your journalists?
Oh, of course. Yeah, we have to. And investigative reporting is the hardest reporting. So it's a very specialized skill.
So what is your allocations of expenses in your nonprofit?
It's all, that's a tough question.
Other than the ordinary expenses like the office and
yeah. Well, we work in a co-working space, so that's much cheaper. I mean, I would say cheaper than we would normally be. Most of it's staff, most of it's reporting. We have an executive director.
Legal services too?
Oh, our legal services are pro bono, so we work with a few different, we have to have a First Amendment attorney because we're publishing stuff and we could be sued for libel, so that was a big hassle, finding the First Amendment attorney. The legal stuff is...
How do you get them to do it pro bono?
Yeah.
This is, I think, like, this is why I say it has to be very intuitive. You have to be looking for opportunities everywhere, like what can I benefit from, what can they benefit from. It's unfortunate that it has to be quid pro quo, but, like, that's how this world works.
They get something back
yeah.
for it.
So I was at an event, a political event, that I wasn't going to go to because I work for a journalistic organization, and it was at a law firm. And I was listening to the partners of the law firm talk about their firm. I'm like, oh my God, they do First Amendment. And I walked up to them with my COO at the time, and she was like, would you guys be interested in representing us? And they said, yeah, we'll do it. And that was it. So.
Great.
Yeah.
So you didn't go to something like DLA or New York Law for Public Interest. You went straight to the law firm.
That was a unique situation. That was for First Amendment, you know, libel stuff. But we work with Lawyers Alliance. We're doing, you know, in terms of the 501c3, this is probably the most important thing that you're going to ever have to deal with. Not important, but starting a nonprofit, it can be hard to figure out. The application process is very long, and the IRS waiting time is like 18 months. So we had a fiscal sponsor that we found through networking. I just put it out there and I said, does anybody know any organizations that would sponsor us fiscally while we take in our first donations? Because I wanted to go out there and fundraise, and I couldn't. So we had a fiscal sponsor. And so we started with that, and then we put in our application through Lawyers Alliance, which is a great resource in New York. And then they approve you or don't approve you or whatever it is. And then you can go through the 501c3 process, application process. Which,
is that the same thing with accounting services as well, or?
Accounting services was done through our fiscal sponsor, but that's not always the case.
If you could come up with a short list of those resources you recommend, like that you mentioned, and email it, we can email it around to the group.
Definitely.
And I know you didn't mention, where we asked about a bad partnership or what we should avoid. If you want to think about that for a minute, I saw somebody else join the call, Michael Zener. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right. Are you able to hear?
I am. Can you guys hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. So we had the introductions. I don't know if you missed them at the beginning, where everyone said their name, their organization, what their top challenge is, and how they can help the group. You want to take a minute just to introduce yourself to the rest of us?
Well, it's a pleasure. Thanks so much for inviting me. Yes, I am an executive nonprofit leader here in the Chicagoland space. I used to be the prior chief executive office of the Susan G. Komen affiliate here in Chicago, and now currently I am the founding executive director of the Illinois Patriot Education Fund, where we raise funds for my fellow veteran brothers and sisters as well as their spouses and children for educational scholarships throughout the state of Illinois. So I started the nonprofit journey back when I was owning a marketing and advertising firm for profit when I joined their volunteer Race for the Cure committee. And ever since then, I have been on an amazing nonprofit journey to bring me where I am today. And I'm very grateful to be invited to this group, and very excited to share and or glean knowledge from everyone involved.
So what's your top challenge?
Top challenge right now currently is building a foundation for success for a growing nonprofit and getting over that hurdle where we are doing amazing work in the community, but we're not at a revenue level yet where the grants are allowing us to apply or get invited to apply. And the impact that we're making is significant, but yet it is not enough to garner the levels of sponsorships that we were able to close deals when I was over at Komen. So it's a huge adjustment as far as, you know, the brand recognition of a large organization that went through a pretty, based on the prior speaker's conversation, based on a very highly politically and charged decision that the organization made regarding Planned Parenthood, which polarized Komen, and it was a very difficult time. But that is a current challenge that I'm experiencing in the sector.
And then what do you have to offer to the group?
I feel that going from a major global nonprofit brand sitting on their leadership council, overseeing 123 affiliates and 500 plus employees, to also now being a founding executive director of a small nonprofit. There's a breadth of knowledge I believe I can bring from areas of how are you ensuring that you're telling your donors the big data impact points, as well as proper policy procedure, transparency, and allocation of expenses and revenues that tie directly to the mission, and then that turns into proper expense ratios being reported out to the constituents as well as the general public.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm going to turn the floor back over to Nomi to talk about, you know, what partnerships to avoid as a nonprofit starting out, or even, you know, mid nonprofit. Some of the things that she's encountered potentially. And then if anyone on the phone has any questions, feel free to shoot it in the chat, or when there's a breather, just, you know, jump in and ask the question as well. And then we'll probably wrap up the question and answer session and you know, have the last 5 minutes of the hour to just talk about what we'll do next, and you know, then we'll end the call and then do a little bit after event networking in the room.
So this is tough because I always think every partnership has something of value to add. But I think as an executive director or a candidate, as we used to say in candidate school, your number one resource is your time. And partnerships may be beneficial in some ways, but sometimes they can lag on for a long time, and they might be more one-sided, or they might pull you away from other potential opportunities and partnerships. So we had at Alliance Hollywood a few years ago, we partnered with an organization. We would produce events together, and there'd be these large-scale events, and they took a lot of time and energy. And you know, at that time we were focusing more on like memberships for revenue, and it required too much staff. It required too much planning. It wasn't getting us the attention that we needed, and definitely wasn't bringing in the money that we needed. and it was really, they were pulling less of the weight, we were pulling more of the weight. It wasn't working out, and it was hard to pull the plug because the people were, they were well-intentioned, and there was a great organization, but we had to sit there and say, what do we need most right now, and what can we get the most out of with our time? And, at that time it was, we needed more exposure, and we needed more money, and we were getting neither with these events that we were doing once a month. So I think putting out a list of your greatest needs as an organization, your greatest assets as the executive director, and as the members of your organization. So for our organization, our greatest assets, without a doubt, are our board. Our board, seasoned journalists who just, we don't look to them for fundraising at all, which is very unusual based on my previous experiences. It's just because they have extraordinary networks in the journalism world, and they've been able to facilitate introductions at the foundations. They've been able to facilitate introductions at the media companies that we're partnering with, or donors, really. So I looked to them first, and I said, we want to develop these types of partnerships. Where do you think our strengths are as an organization? Where are our weaknesses? And what's our best use of time to be able to get the amount of money we need in the shortest period of time, and what partnerships will get us there. Because as a nonprofit, unless you're self-funding your nonprofit, most likely you need money. And how are you going to get that money in the fastest way? So, we made the mistake. That was the big one in the beginning, was partnering with an organization that just wasn't giving us what we needed. Yeah. That answer?
Absolutely. So are there any other questions in the room or on the phone for Nomi while she's here?
Nomi, this is Mark. I was just wondering, what kind of support do you get from individuals nationwide, if any?
Because we're not a membership-based organization, we haven't put as much energy into building that side, and we will eventually. I really think that as we grow and have a more national presence, we're gonna pivot a little bit. Every once in a while we'll get some donations from random people, and I'm like, where do they find us? But it's definitely very small. We have individual donors nationwide that give us money, but they're wealthy individuals. They're philanthropist types. But,
right.
We're really not focusing on membership.
My hunch is there might be a lot of potential that's untapped because a lot of folks out there are not too happy with political corruption and the way things are going, and how the media has sort of turned the other way in many respects, or just ignored it and not been able to cover it.
Definitely.
I think there's a universal appeal there that you could tap into, and maybe work with a list brokers or a direct mail firm, kind of explore the possibilities to get out there, and then you'd build a stream of income from individuals that would renew itself every year. You could talk about your success stories, build their engagement, and then maybe even lead to some major gifts or planned gifts down the road.
Definitely.
Are there similar organizations in other states, or are you thinking of expanding this to others?
Yeah, and that's one of the reasons why we've been pulling back a little bit. We were trying to scale this very strategically. I think that in my past experiences, growing too fast was a little bit, we don't have enough staff. Like, most of our staff are reporters, and they don't know how to do any of this stuff. So, it lies on the two people who are in the office all day long to be able to manage the list, to write the emails. This stuff it all takes up time. So hopefully as we grow state by state, we'll be able to scale up. But the lists are incredible for fundraising, yeah.
A question I have is if you have any general suggestions on how to cultivate those partnerships initially.
Mm-hmm.
You mentioned a few things that you did, which seemed great, like creating that list of what you can offer, what you need, and then from what I'm seeing, like what's worked for you is you just going to different events and just going up and asking whenever it seems appropriate and aligns with what you're doing. Do you have anything else that you would suggest?
A really big thing is making sure that you have the paperwork to back it up. Meaning, like, do you have a one sheet? Do you have a website? Even if it's very basic just something that you can put in someone's hands or follow up with them that gives you what's your mission, what's your goal, what's your timeline, like a business plan in one page. Who you are, who are you? Like why you? Why are you the executive director and founder? I couldn't sell the Accountability Project if I didn't have the story of having my name kicked off a ballot because somebody paid off the person who was taking those the signatures to get that was corruption, and then 10 other stories that I knew about. So this would have never gotten off the ground if I hadn't taken it from that angle. And I think it's really important in your materials. I've noticed a lot of startup organizations focus a lot on like videos. You don't need that. Like it's expensive. Yeah, just a one-pager and a simple website that you can build with Wix or whatever it is that you Squarespace, telling the story of who you are and why you want this to exist. Videos can be costly, and if they're not done well, I think that people tune them out. And if you're not good on camera, that's another thing. But yeah, I mean that's really important.
One piece of advice I recently got from a startup advisor is you give the one pager, but before asking for money, you ask for advice. So you don't ever ask for money. You're asking for help because people are willing to give help more than they are to give money, and they also it's almost an ego thing too, where if you do some research on the people you want advice from and potentially money down the road, you can go to them with, I know you know these things, and it would be great if you could help me with it, or if you know somebody else who can. And then what you said about boards, that's also recent advice I've gotten. Any startup, probably as an organization or for-profit, not-for-profit, building out a board is very helpful. A board of advisors, board of directors, and there's actually different definitions for advisors and directors, and so understanding all those definitions and how they, who you're going to bring on to really help you make the right decisions up front, I think will set the right stage.
Right.
So I think in the last couple minutes, I want to get a little bit of feedback as to, is this the right time? Because I was also kind of thinking, this is late. Would more nonprofits want to do something during the day? This was the idea that, there are people who are working and then they'd be able to participate afterwards, but I don't know if there's any feedback on making this work better the next time. Does it work for the people on the phone?
What if you summed up, like some of the key points of everything, and you started just keeping like a database, a track record, like a video or a agenda or something people can tap into, and they can say or a blog or something that just says, hey, we're compiling information and we're constantly thinking about streamlining it for you, and here's what we've gotten so far, and here are the connections, a good place. I mean, you already have myself and other advisors on the phone, like give them a place maybe on your meetup group or on your LinkedIn to say, hey, we're out here if you want to reach out to us, even if you just want to sit down on a one-on-one. Echoing what you said, one of the things that I see all the time is startups and nonprofit founders alike have a lot of ego issues that they don't want to overcome because they have a lot of hard time asking for help, and the people that have the information that they have don't need to give it to them. So it's like being humble and just going out and saying, here's what we're trying to do, can you help me? But so if you create a forum, I think regardless of how the meetings go, you're going to be able to create a track record saying we built this value, we have compiled this information, this meeting and next meeting and the meeting after, and if you like what you're seeing here, just keep subscribing to whatever we're doing. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and I think my challenge is I've led other things, and it's hard to find other leaders or to find the people who would come in and help with it. But I think if there is value to this and we want to continue it, finding the right people to continue it, and depending on other locations, because right now we have the most mass in New York on the LinkedIn group, and whether there are other geographies, some of the people on the call, what your thoughts are on getting more people, because this is very labor intensive too, to find the right people who would want to grow, and whether we just focus on the aspiring, nonprofit directors and then, bring on a couple key advisors, or whether it's more for the experienced people that, it's kind of defining the group. So even itself, I think, is similar to some of the issues we face for our own organizations.
This is Mike, and I have an interesting comment that when we did a couple training sessions back in the Komen days, it was really amazing when they brought in those individuals who we were asking money from. And their feedback was instrumental, and having some of those folks, like, for example, I know the retired vice president of cause-related marketing from Walgreens Corporate, Bonnie Gordon. She'd love to come in and help all of us who are not only startups or even tenured nonprofit leaders be able to ask the questions. So, for example, one thing that she brought up to dovetail with that last comment that was said was going in and asking for help and phrasing that question to ask the funder or the corporate sponsor, what does success look for you if you were to partner with the Illinois Patriot Education Fund, and then allowing them to share exactly their needs. And that really has turned into a better dialogue in conversations when asking for money.
So I think there's been a lot of good advice shared during this meeting, and this is, time, right? That we've all put into to listen to it. And part of what I think would be helpful for this group too is to synthesize it and say, this is what will help me the most. This is who will help me. This is what I've learned, and share that. So that's kind of, I don't want to be the only one starting discussions and answering. To actually get people who can help each other and help your organization develop the right kind of partnerships for you. And so I would say let's follow up offline and then see where this takes us. Whether again, it takes time to organize it. So will we do one every month? Will we do one once a quarter? Will other people start taking advantage of this meetup group and doing the in-person meetings in their own geographies? And if it's something that's useful, because again, you don't want to spend your time doing something that's going to be a time suck and not help the people involved. So.
I think you want to iterate it a couple of times. You want to see what's working before you start growing. Like anything that you do, you want to make sure that you've got it sort of down and what are the key things that are helpful for people. So I think it's.
I think having a smaller group is actually more intimate and better than having a huge room of people to be able to interact. But there's pros and cons to having a lot of people versus not a lot. And the one last thing I wanted to mention is the one resource, the person couldn't join us today, but she's the publisher of the New York Nonprofit Press. They're working on an OpCon here in New York. I think the date's June 2nd, and they're looking to have some speakers and some feedback from nonprofit leaders. It's open just to nonprofit leaders, and I can also send around information if you're interested. I think everyone has my email address, or if not, you can contact me through Meetup or LinkedIn. And the discussions that they're planning to talk about on this all-day conference include things about real estate, trends, business cycle of nonprofits, technological tools for streamlining processes, finance strategies, and efficiently reporting outcome instead of output. So it's, again, for executive directors, CFOs, accounting people, major nonprofits, public officials. So that I think that kind of fits in with what we're doing with these little meetings. And as we look at what resources are out there that will help us all, this may be a good one for us to join as well. So great. So I'm going to actually hang up the phone and stop the recording.